Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the Dead Man's Last Gambit, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. The rain lashed against the window panes with a ferocity that echoed the chaos inside the dimly lit drawing room. A sudden clap of thunder shattered the stillness, causing Miss Agatha Trevelyan to gasp as she clutched her silk shawl tightly around her shoulders. For just as she did so, a scream pierced through the storm, sharp and filled with terror. A sound that silenced even the relentless patter of rain. In the flickering candlelight, Hercule Poirot remained calm, his heart steady as he regarded the faces of the gathered guests, each wearing a carefully painted mask concealing deeper truths. "Mon Dieu, it appears we have a dire situation on our hands," Poirot murmured, his voice smooth but edged with an unmistakable tension. Before the evening, a mere gathering of the elite in the quaint English countryside, now it had twisted into a web of fear and suspicion. The body of Lord Richard Averton lay sprawled at the foot of the grand staircase, life extinguished in an instant, a twisted smile frozen on his lips, a cruel joke played by fate, or perhaps by a more malevolent hand. The guests, an ensemble of characters each draped in elegance, were now like actors caught off guard on stage, barely concealing their shock. Lady Eleanor, Richard's glamorous widow, wept theatrically, her pearls glistening in the pallid light. "He was my everything," she cried, although the glint in her eyes suggested more than mere grief. There was something lurking beneath her polished exterior, an undercurrent of desperation. Poirot observed her, noting the way she wiped away a tear just a heartbeat too late, a mannerism that stirred his intuition. "Mais oui, such a tragedy. And yet, there lies the question," Poirot mused inwardly, for he could see it, the strands of a mystery begging to be unraveled. He turned his piercing gaze toward their other companions, each equally suspect. There was Colonel Walter Dashwood, a stern figure draped in military decorum. His hands, calloused and heavy from years of service, trembled ever so slightly, detail that did not escape Poirot's attention. "He was a good man, or so he claimed," muttered Colonel Dashwood, his voice a growl. Yet beneath his bravado, Poirot sensed a hidden animosity, a brotherhood of men, perhaps turned rival. Then there was Miss Prudence Wren, a playwright of some renown, a woman who wielded words as weapons. Her gaze darted suspiciously as she scribbled notes in her leather-bound journal, a practice that might have seemed harmless, but instead spoke of an obsessive need to capture the moment, the chaotic details of a life just torn apart. "Maybe this was all stage," she whispered to herself, almost as if the specter of blame shadowed her rather than the late lord. Poirot's mind raced through an array of possibilities. A dramatic alibi? A hidden agenda? But the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami. Each individual held a piece of the puzzle, yet they were reluctant to share, or perhaps they simply did not know how. He approached the body, kneeling, beside Lord Averton with the grace befitting a surgeon, the immaculate tailored suit torn at the collar, a sign of struggle. The absence of a weapon near his outstretched hand raised more questions than it answered. Poirot glanced upward, scanning the faces turned to him, suspicion marshaled under polite pretenses. "Ladies and gentlemen, I must ask you to remain here. Though as difficult as it may be, none can leave the premises until we understand what has transpired," Poirot declared, feeling the weight of their gazes as he drew himself up, a figure of authority amidst the encroaching darkness. A gasp of discontent ran through the guests, but none dared to object, the power of fear anchoring them as effectively as a chain. As the storm raged outside, Poirot began his inquiries with the grace of a conductor guiding his orchestra. He approached Lady Eleanor first, intrigued by the glint of bitterness and vulnerability that danced across her features like a candle flame in the night. "My dear lady, may I inquire about your husband's relationships? Was there anything unusual or distressing in the time leading up to this tragic evening?" Her response was punctuated by a deep, tremulous sigh. Richard was complicated. Affairs of the heart are often fraught with peril, you see. He was kind, but also mercurial. One never knew whom to trust, and there are whispers of a certain acquaintance who clung to him like a shadow. Poirot nodded, suitably intrigued, mentally cataloging the information, an acquaintance, or perhaps an admirer whose motives remained veiled. Next, Colonel Dashwood stepped forward with a tight-lipped seriousness. I had my disagreements with Richard. In the war, he had his demons, and so did I. Yet I would never wish him harm. You must understand, we men of consequence live under considerable pressures. His gaze, however, bore the weight of something more, something unspoken. Poirot noted the way his eyes flicked ever so briefly toward the fireplace, perhaps a clue buried in the ashes of their past. Finally, Miss Wren sat poised on the edge of a velvety armchair, too composed, too meticulous for the chaos that surrounded her. Art can only reflect the nature of humanity, Monsieur Poirot, she said cryptically. Indeed, we mask our true feelings with roles we play. Lord Averton's latest production, was it a tragedy or farce? Perhaps his very life was but a scripted folly, a performance gone wrong. So it would seem, Poirot replied slowly, intrigued by her abstraction. Yet life seldom permits any of us to change our parts at the final curtain. The heart of the storm raged outside, each clap of thunder resonating through the house, and with each passing moment, Poirot felt the pressure deepening. A red herring some might grasp at, but not he. He mentally segregated the truths from the deceptions. Yet all the while, an unsettling feeling brewed that perhaps even he, the great detective, would be misled. As shadows contorted in laughter against the walls, Poirot's keen senses remained vigilant, always processing. The first act may have presented itself as a mere puzzle, but like rain on the surface of a pond, the depth of murky secrets lay hidden far below, waiting to be unveiled, unraveling in ways he could not yet fully comprehend. But the night had only just begun, and as Poirot prepared for what lay ahead, he knew that somewhere among the living, the true face of treachery awaited to be revealed. Not in the flash of extravagant jewels or the grandeur of titles, but rather wrapped in the nature of mankind itself. And in the theater of this darkened home, under an impenetrable cloak of lies, the enigmatic guest, the murderer, had indeed emerged. Chapter 2. A card game unfolds. The clock struck midnight, a sonorous chime that echoed through the dimly lit parlor, whose shadows danced ominously against the walls like phantoms of the night. The storm that had roared outside settled into a low, unsettling whisper, creating a heavy atmosphere that felt almost sentient. A glimmer of candlelight illuminated the table, where the flickering flames painted the players' faces in daunting chiaroscuro, revealing nuances of fear and trepidation. And just then, with the crack of thunder in the distance, the echoes of another scream rang out, a chilling reminder that nothing was truly over. Hercule Poirot, the renowned detective with an unmatched adroitness for deciphering human nature, fixed his gaze on the assembled guests. The air crackled with an electric tension, a palpable dread swirling amongst them as they gathered for what was supposed to be a consolatory game of cards. Poirot couldn't help but note the irony. A game intended for light-hearted distraction, now transformed into an icy reflection of their collective turmoil. Lady Eleanor, still adorned in her elegant black dress, had taken refuge in the corner, her fingers deftly twisting a silver ring, while her eyes flitted nervously from face to face. How beautifully she masked her grief. Yet Poirot caught a glimpse of the ire brewing beneath her composed surface. Colonel Dashwood, stoic yet twitchy, smoothed the creases of his uniform. The lamplight flickered off the medals pinned to his breast, bearing witness to battles fought on distant shores, far removed from the treachery that brewed here at Averton Hall. Then there was Miss Prudence Wren, intensely focused, her sharp features cast in shadow as she scrutinized her opponents, perhaps in search of the next drama to unveil. Mon ami, the human heart, it harbors many secrets. Poirot mused silently, his intuition honed and keen, ready to unravel the twisted intentions that coiled around each character like a serpent. As he observed their postures and whispers, he suddenly felt the heaviness of the air shift. The weight of their decisions loomed larger, filling the parlor with an almost suffocating urgency. The set began, 3 players seated. Around the table, Lady Eleanor, Colonel Dashwood, and Ms. Wren. Each dealt a hand of cards, shuffling the routine of distraction into an undercurrent of tension. Poirot, seated within earshot yet deliberately apart, observed not merely the game, but the emotional exchanges woven between them. For amongst these masked intentions lay hidden truths that would soon reveal themselves, like the severed threads of a tightly wound tapestry. "Ah, Miss Wren," Poirot interjected smoothly, "would you be so kind to share your thoughts on the game? Cards, they often reflect our true selves, do they not?" His voice sliced through the murmur, and the group turned, their faces taut with suspicion. "Indeed," she replied, eyes glinting as she calculated her reply. "Every card played is a choice, a glimpse of who we truly are beneath the facade. But perhaps, Monsieur Poirot, you know that better than anyone." Eleanor's laugh was sharp, yet a trifle forced. "We are merely playing a game, my dear Prudence. There are no faces here, but merely cards." There was a nervousness in her tone that struck Poirot, an effort to assert control over the chaos enveloping them. The game progressed, cards exchanging hands, fortunes intertwined with lies. The rain pattered relentlessly against the window, the storm outside mirroring the brewing storm within the souls present. Colonel Dashwood fidgeted, his eyes darting towards the fire that crackled, an unsettling dance of flames that seemed almost judgmental in its flickers. Poirot noted the perspiration beating upon his brow. "A tense night indeed, Colonel," he remarked, the hint of a smile ghosting his lips. "Your hand trembles more than the candle's flame, no?" "What do you imply, Poirot?" The Colonel shot back, his voice tinged with defensiveness, but the surge of volume betrayed a deeper agitation. "Perhaps our pasts are trying to surface, my friend," Poirot replied, allowing his gaze to linger on the table before shifting back to the Colonel, witnessing the facade crack just slightly, a small, telling fracture. Then amidst the growing unease, the flickering candle extinguished, plunging the room into darkness, and panic erupted. Poirot's superior mind flicked through the possibilities, quickly illuminating the space with a single match struck from his pocket. The glow revealed Lady Eleanor too close to Colonel Dashwood, their faces etched with a mix of surprise and fear. Shadows danced on the walls as they hastily retreated from one another, their hands drawing away from the playing cards as if they'd burned them. The commotion revealed a broken palette of emotions: suspicion, relief, animosity. Yet suspicion thickened the space like smoke. Each character withdrew into themselves, shrouded in a distinct narrative only Poirot seemed to be able to dissect. "Ladies and gentlemen, let us resume the game," Poirot commanded gently but firmly, casting the spell of his authority over the fractured group, forcing them to play their roles. "But remember, each play leads to a revelation. Watch closely. You may find much more in the unfolding than the cards before you." With the matchstick still flickering, Poirot's keen observational skills took in every detail. A shadowy reflection of the Colonel's cufflinks shimmered, reminiscent of a long-lost medal. Lady Eleanor's hollow laugh had twitched at the corner of her mouth, a sound cloaked in deceit, and Miss Wren, always the storyteller, now seemed more an actress marionette, her strings delicately pulled by some unseen hand. As the game continued, they ventured deeper into the labyrinth of lies, each card flip laying bare not merely strategies but deeper motives laced beneath. A careless word from Eleanor hinted at a past rendezvous with a gentleman unknown. Words snatched by the storm and spat back like secrets. They ignited fresh suspicions in an already volatile space. Personal grudges surfaced like hollowed earth, and Poirot's ears pricked at the clues falling as deftly as the rain outside. But before the revelations could fully crystallize, a shrill scream echoed once more from the depths of the house, piercing through the haze of suspicion like a dagger through flesh. Poirot was propelled into action, the urgency now stinging at his senses. The players rose, hearts racing, the game abandoned as they raced toward the source of the shriek. Within moments, they discovered Miss Prudence Wren, collapsed in a lifeless heap outside her chamber, clutching a crumpled card bearing the initials L.A. Poirot knelt beside her, an unsettling numbness washing over him as he turned the card in his gloved hands. Ah, but the heart of the enigma grows darker, and betrayal is a cruel jest, he thought inwardly. As the wailing storm intensified, drawing closer, Poirot knew the true game had only just begun. The cards dealt tonight held more than mere figures. They held the tragic narratives of their intertwined destinies, where love, betrayal, and the most desperate of human desires all converged within this spiraling tale. The revelations would come, yet each would cut more deeply than the last. He took a breath, the weight of impending truth heavy upon him, steeling himself for the darkness, yet to unveil its cautionary face. Chapter 3. A Whisper in the Dark. The air was thick with a chilling silence, punctuated only by the distant roll of thunder that seemed to mock the stillness in Averton Hall. A shudder ran through the darkened corridors, where shadows clung to the walls like secrets long buried. And there, amidst the flickering candlelight, a new scream echoed, unnervingly close yet hauntingly vague. It was a cry of desperation born from the unknown, fading into the dampness of the night and sending shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. There amidst the low crackling of the fireplace now lay a conundrum, an enigma wrapped in darkness, waiting for the light of understanding to pierce its veil. Hercule Poirot moved with an elegance that belied the gravity of the situation, his focused gaze sweeping over the damp, ornate carpet as he processed the chaos around him. In moments like this, the unraveling of human emotions became an intricate tapestry, demanding his full attention. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused silently, a sigh escaping his lips as he stepped forward, striding towards the commotion that swirled around them. Lady Eleanor was the first to react, her face pale, framed by dark curls that fell in disarray over her shoulders. "What now? Is it another body?" she exclaimed, panic lacing her voice. Colonel Dashwood, whose stoic demeanor had cracked under the pressure of earlier events, tightened his fists at his sides, clearly torn between concern and fear. "We must remain calm, Lady Eleanor. This house is cursed, I tell you," he barked, glancing toward the swirling darkness that seemed to encroach further upon them. And there, slumped awkwardly, against the wooden banister, was Miss Prudence Wren once again. The very specter of tragedy, her lifeless form accentuating the pallor of the night. The crumpled card bearing the initials L.A. nestled in her fingers seemed to taunt Poirot, whispering secrets yet untold. Kneeling beside her, he felt the weight of urgency push against him, drawing out an instinct honed through years of piecing together shattered lives. Yet something within him refused to accept that Miss Wren was simply another victim in this theater of deceit. "A mere coincidence, is it not?" he murmured to himself. The initials were hauntingly familiar, igniting sparks of memories amidst the fog of the moment. He turned his attention to the remaining three, aware of the storm brewing within their hearts. Each masked their thoughts with a veneer of horror, yet each carried personal burdens heavy enough to shatter glass. Colonel Dashwood fidgeted uneasily, the glint of his metals contrasting with the dread pooling in his eyes. Perhaps he had never truly returned from the wars. Perhaps he carried a battle within him, one that erupted in the chaos of sacrifice and regret. Poirot noted the sweat glistening on the colonel's brow, betraying an inner tempest that had little to do with the storm outside. Then there was Lady Eleanor, her composure slipping as shock morphed into suspicion. "Miss Wren and I had our differences. You know that," she spat, her words cutting through the tension. "The deep cuts of disdain can wound, you see, and yet even I cannot wish her dead." But Poirot heard the slight tremor in her voice, a telltale sign of a facade collapsing. The deeper motives simmered beneath her carefully curated surface. Lastly, Miss Wren's presence loomed large in the room, even in her absence, like a vengeful spirit. With each of her insights during the card game lingering in his mind, Poirot recalled how she had seemed to dance around the truth, threading lighter moments through dark shadows. Every card played is a choice, she had said, her eyes glinting. It was a statement pregnant with meaning, resonating even as they confronted death. Their collective turmoil bespoke of secrets, and Poirot allowed himself the luxury of silence for a moment, listening to the heartbeats of those gathered, attuned to the undercurrents of their emotions. "Pardon? What lies beneath the surface of your noble grief?" he finally asked, his words deliberate, challenging. Suspicion gripped the air as Lady Eleanor's laughter rang dissonantly through the trembling hall. "What is it you propose, Poirot? That we unmask a killer among us? Absurd. How exquisitely ironic it was. This mortal dance of life and death, the way fabricated truths could drape shadows upon hearts filled with fear." Yet Poirot had learned an invaluable lesson. In the theater of the human soul, the most calculated of performances could yield the most devastating of revelations. As chaos unfolded around him, Poirot resolved to dissect every nuance of their interactions, revealing the fabric of deception woven into their very beings. In time, clues began to surface like tides receding. A misplaced matchstick, crudely wedged under a chair, caught his eye, a detail unnoticed by the others. It was not just the remnants of their struggle with the darkness, but a sign, perhaps, of someone grappling with their own impulses. And then there was the peculiar behavior of Colonel Dashwood, who had seemingly ignored the flickering lights the very moment the storm had worsened, his focus instead fixated outside toward the storm, as though waiting for the very sky to part. With each inquiry leading to a cul-de-sac, Poirot weaved a rich tapestry of their suspicions, and emotions heightened like a sonorous crescendo. He probed deeper, peeling away layers of resentment and rivalry laced in their pasts. The threads promised to tighten further, leading to unexpected twists lurking just out of sight. It was not until the edge of dawn, the storm receding softly to reveal a silent morning, that the pieces began to fall into existence. A conversation overheard, a bittersweet tone in Lady Eleanor's words, whispered in the dark as a fleeting shadow crossed her face. "Prudence was becoming too wise to our little affairs," she had stated, punctuating it with a laughter tinged with malice. In that moment, Poirot's clarity sharpened. The motives intertwined vastly and viciously, yet none struck deeper than the betrayal woven into the fabric of their very lives. He gathered the confounded group in the dimly lit parlor, the storm's remnants settled yet palpable, and presented the twisted reality. Ah, but to murder in the name of love, non? How tragically poetic. As he laid bare the connections, the turns of fate folding within themselves, Poirot revealed not just the killer, but an unseen hand, one that had orchestrated more than mere deceit. The initials on the card, L.A., belonged not as a signature, but to a fractured love affair tangled in a web of animosity, secrecy, and deep-rooted resentment. Silence engulfed them, heavy with the realization that sometimes the whispers in the dark carry the loudest echoes of betrayal. As truth suffused the room, Poirot concluded with a final, echoing lesson. In the end, it is love, in all its manifestations, that brings about our greatest tragedies. The words lingered long after, sealing the truth in every heart present, as dawn cracked through the dark. Remnants, exposing shadows, vulnerabilities, and lingering regrets left in their wake. Chapter 4. Secrets Beneath the Surface. The single candle flickered unsteadily against the oppressive weight of darkness, casting long, dancing shadows that twisted upon the damp marble floor of the parlor. In that uneasy stillness, a sharp gasp ruptured the silence, a desperate exclamation from Lady Eleanor that echoed through the somber halls of Averton Hall. As the scant light struggled to pierce the veil of night, seeping in like the whispers of the dead, Hercule Poirot felt a chill snake its way up his spine. This house, haunted by the weight of its secrets, had delivered yet another shudder of despair. The veil of normalcy had been ripped apart, stained by the blood of betrayal lingering in the pulsing darkness. Poirot's sharp gaze swept across the faces of the remaining guests, now mere specters brimming with panic. Colonel Dashwood, standing rigidly by the window, squinted through the deluge, a rapid flicker of emotions flitting across his features like shadows. His breath quickened, betraying a soldier's instinct of fear, fighting against the arid winds of stoicism. Meanwhile, Lady Eleanor clutched a tarnished silver necklace at her throat, the rhythmic tap against her chest mimicking the unsteady thud of her heart. Both seemed adrift in a storm of their own making. As their chaos intermingled, Poirot's mind danced with the known truths and hidden motives entwined within the fabric of their existence. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused inwardly, feeling the swirl of emotions surrounding him like a tempest. Yet amid this din, he knew a methodical approach was required. He would unearth what lay beneath the surface. Each soul in this room carried a history, a burden, and perhaps the key to unveiling the truth concealing this latest tragedy. The storm outside howled as if in agreement, pulsating with a life and intensity that mirrored the emotional tempest swirling within. Poirot rose elegantly, clearing his throat to capture their attention. "Mes amis," he began, his voice cutting through the whispers. "We stand upon a precipice, pregnant with despair and death. What is needed now is clarity, not more shadows upon our hearts." Eleanor's gaze flickered away, revealing a sliver of unease despite her attempt at nonchalance. "Must we dissect our feelings now, Poirot? Shall we share secrets?" Her sarcasm dripped like poison. Yet, Poirot understood the defensive nature cloaked within her words. She was more than a woman scorned. Her connection to Miss Prudence Wren breathed history, likely marked by a rivalry that simmered beneath the surface. Poirot turned his attention to Colonel Dashwood, whose shadows spoke volumes louder than his words. "Colonel, what do you know of Miss Wren? Surely she must have stirred unworthy feelings among those gathered." The soldier stiffened, eyes narrow and calculating, trembling slightly, as he engaged with the question. "She was often insistent, in ways detrimental to our pride," he replied, his voice strained, punctuated by the crack of thunder that rattled against the fragile windows, competing with the growing tumult of emotion stirring in the room. With those words hung weighty in the air, Poirot hastily pieced together the mounting tension igniting between the trio. The colonel bore the burden of pride in past wars fought, not only in foreign lands perhaps, but in twisted, emotional battles as well. A gentleman must possess control, but perhaps there are some battles he cannot bear? Poirot challenged, watching for the flicker of emotion that illuminated Colonel Dashwood's otherwise stoic demeanor. A muffled sob echoed from Lady Eleanor, a fleeting window into a complex heart. "That woman! She had no right to meddle in our affairs. Perhaps she realized she was stepping into treacherous waters. We could have kept her secret," she hissed, the conversation quickly, evolving into a spiraling tempest of resentment. The bonds between them all felt taut, coiled like the most intricate and dangerous of traps set for unsuspecting prey. As the hours drifted by, Poirot's observant gaze met the minor details others overlooked. The peculiar way the candlelight reflected against Eleanor's eyes, revealing a flicker of guilt. The cobwebs draping the corners of the room spoke of neglect, yet so too did the surfaces upon which dust had settled, witnesses to their lives, intertwined with deception. The room seemed laden with whispers of past betrayals, tales of betrayal buried beneath their carefully cultivated facades. Yet Poirot could sense another truth lurking in the folds of emotion, a possibility that further spiraled the depths of his musings. Just as soldiers of fate might find themselves on the battlefield, they too could be consumed by their decisions. Each individual clutched at their nightly roles, choosing to engage with one another, even as the chidey thunderstorm rumbled a warning just beyond the fragile embrace of warmth and existence. Time crept forward, obscuring clarity and sharpening the muddled fears that danced beneath the surface. Poirot became acutely aware of a pattern emerging. The letters L.A. and the depths of distress within those three letters haunted him, unraveling something poignant and tragically ironic. In an auspicious moment of clarity, he honed in on his first misdirection. "Ah, Colonel Dashwood, but a soldier often hides in the chaos. But as I have observed, you too are not beyond question." The subtle twist of Poirot's gaze revealed the truth nestled between his words. "You may carry the burden of pride and pain, yet surely there remains a portion of you that desires to shield your honor." The colonel's eyes darkened, locking onto Poirot's, revealing the trembling undercurrent of threats persisted within his psyche. "Are you implying that I could harm?" he replied tightly, a hint of vulnerability weaved in as their paths jostled for position, each man's honor threatened by his surrounds. Eleanor's hand rose to silence him, a tension as palpable as the storm outside. "Stop this, all of you. This is absurd. I have spoken nothing but truth all along." And yet, her own voice tremored under the strain of her need for validation. But hidden ghosts slumbered still, waiting to expose their relentless truths. By dawn, with the storm finally receding and the light creeping into the edges of the fear-stained windows, Poirot gathered his weary adversaries before him, an electric tension coating the air. "Gentleman and lady, you harbor secrets that twist within you," he solemnly declared. "You all play your roles within this play of tragedy. Yet I unearthed a greater betrayal buried beneath the narrative, the truth of love transcending into jealousy, the lifeblood of our emotional turmoil." With gripping tenacity, he presented the truth, identifying Colonel Dashwood as the orchestrator of the most treacherous schemes. "You, my dear Colonel, are not merely a soldier enwrapped in turmoil, but a soul envy-ridden by past decisions. You tarnished your humanity through regret, deciding to eliminate a rival who knew too much," he concluded, exposing the fragile web of emotions that ensnared them. The realization shattered the assembled trio like fragile shards of glass, yet their eyes bore the consequences of their intertwining lies, forever marred by betrayal that pierced deeper than mere actions. In this moment of reckoning, Poirot's words echoed through the now brightened room, shifting from the dark whispers of secrets to a poignant, lingering reminder. "It is through love's darkest derision that our greatest tragedies arise. Alas, the human heart seeks sanctuary, but may find only ruin within its own treachery." Lady Eleanor's sobs morphed into stunned silence as the oppressive weight of truth descended, dissipating the shadows once curled around them. As the first rays of dawn broke free from the storm, illuminating the fragments of their hidden selves, Poirot stood, an unyielding sentinel against the darkness that had threatened to consume them all. Chapter 5. A Fatal Mistake. The walls of Averton Hall seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, each shadow deepening and stretching as candlelight flickered against the encroaching night. The air was thick with an unnerving tension, and a storm raged outside, thunder crashing in ominous bursts, like death knells, echoing through the hallways. In this wretched calm before the storm lay a serendipitous truth waiting to erupt, the thing that no one expected. An unmistakable scream rang out, slicing through the shroud of darkness as Lady Eleanor fell to her knees before what no one could have anticipated. The pallid moonlight illuminated a grotesque scene. The lifeless body of Colonel Dashwood sprawled unnaturally across the pristine marble floors. His piercing blue eyes, now glassy and void of life, stared blankly into the abyss. A dagger protruded from his chest, a silken ribbon trailing from the hilt, soaking up the horror like a sponge drinks from the rain. Lady Eleanor's hands trembled as she clutched at her throat, struggling to breathe as the weight of despair crashed upon her. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold, the turmoil swirling within the room, cocooning him in an ethereal cloak of clarity amidst the chaos. "Mon Dieu," he breathed, "murder, and in such an intimate fashion." Gathering his thoughts, Poirot began to piece together the puzzle. He assessed the trembling figures of Lady Eleanor, who knelt with haunted eyes, and Miss Prudence Wren, who had returned earlier than expected, appearing ghostly pale against the flickering light as she clutched a chest of memories tightly to her. The third guest, Mr. Vincent Hargrove, stood rigid near the door, his distress veiled behind a facade of stoicism. Each of them held secrets woven within the fabric of their lives, secrets that intertwined darkly against a backdrop of blood in betrayal. "Mon cher," Poirot addressed them, his voice slicing through their shock like a scalpel. "We find ourselves in the midst of calamity. The truth must emerge from this veil of falsehood, and I am to uncover it." He felt the pulse of fear, the silent plea for absolution tightening within the circle, as he asked, "What do you remember before the fatal blow was struck?" Lady Eleanor broke first, her voice quaking as she recounted a passionate argument moments prior. He threatened to reveal our indiscretions. I could not bear to face the scrutiny of society again, not after all we've endured. Her confession reverberated in the still air, the weight of it leaving a dense fog in its wake. Poirot observed the way her fingers trembled against her necklace, the same tarnished silver she had clutched the evening before. A subtle sign of guilt, perhaps, or merely a reflex against the horror she had witnessed. Ah, but love, it can provoke the wildest of decisions, no? Poirot interjected, his brow creasing thoughtfully. Turning to Prudence, he inquired, "And you, my dear, what holds you amidst this tragedy?" The woman inhaled sharply, her voice an eerie whisper. Colonel Dashwood's pride blinded him. He could never have understood the path I walked, nor the depth of my pain, she lamented. He claimed I was nothing without him, merely a shadow in the twilight of their love. Poirot detected a quiver of vengeance beneath her words, each syllable laced with bitterness that hinted at deeper wounds festering within. A potential motive loomed in the air, challenging within the currents of emotional disarray. Yet Poirot's attention was drawn back to Mr. Hargrove. His demeanor, deceptively placid, revealed nothing of the turmoil within as he remained steeled by the door. It is peculiar, Poirot penned inwardly, how a man's stillness can mask the very storm howling beneath. In an unanticipated flash of confidence, he challenged Hargrove. You must speak. Did the colonel raise his dagger against a more figurative enemy this night? Hargrove stammered, the words rolling tumbling from his lips. I often advised against Eleanor's hysteria, her reckless decisions. But you must understand, Poirot, I would never harm him. Such accusations are unfounded. A drop of sweat glistened against his forehead as he winced, the storm outside seemingly amplifying the tension, but perhaps merely reflecting the disarray of emotions surging within. With every exchange peeling away layers, Poirot delved deeper, understanding them not solely as suspects, but as marionettes dancing upon a stage fraught with deceit. Yet amid the fabric of truth and lies, a singular thread glimmered sharply, a weapon far beyond the dagger that lay in stillness beneath them. He recalled the letter, initially scoffed at, bearing the initials L.A. Ah, a potential misdirection, perhaps. But these letters may yet hold the key to a much darker revelation, he resolved, as his thoughts spiraled back into the heart of possibility, threading connections like so many fine silk strands entwined around each character. As night waned, the storm continued its wrath, and when Lady Eleanor caught sight of a shadow flitting past the window, her insides twisted in fear, a sudden realization dawning upon her. This was no random act of violence, but the culmination of planning, vengeance looped around hidden scars deep within their hearts. Upon gathering the witnesses again, Poirot spoke, the serenity of his presence contrasting sharply with the storm that circled hungrily outside. My friends, you have spun webs of suspicion and chaotic misunderstandings. Yet I am pressed to find clarity amidst turmoil, and thus each of you bears a mark, a stain upon your character. He captured each eye, watching the minuscule twitches and shifts of their postures. Prudence, he began, your past with Colonel Dashwood has bred contempt, but could it also thrive on a desire for salvation? You sought revenge, yet the means wrought blood upon your hands. His eyes shifted to Lady Eleanor. And you, driven by perilous love habits, would you have allowed these tribulations to escalate to murder? Finally, turning slowly towards Hargrove, he outlined a fleeting thought with weight. How is it that, as the one closest to Lady Eleanor, you possess both protection and the capacity for betrayal? Murmurs filled the room, the dawning recognition dancing within shadows as Poirot set the stage for the revelation. Indeed, the letters were a misdirection, entrapping the colonel into the very chains of identity intertwined with consequence. He spoke, piecing together fragments. The switch concealed those who truly sought a fatal decision, and the heroic front you intend to portray, Mr. Hargrove, conceals your own tempest of misguided intentions. You aim to drown your protectees in mire, to protect your hard-won heart by eliminating the colonel who would unravel your own deceit, Stunned silence enveloped them as Hargrove recoiled. "No, it was only ever meant to be a warning," he stuttered, emotions roiling beneath his surface. Not just fear, but something akin to desperation. On his features, Poirot could discern the longing to escape, a wish to eradicate all pathos and blood-soaked memories clinging to him. Regrettably, the fatal mistake arises not in the first act of violence, but in the continuum of lies and lost honor. Colonel Dashwood realized as the dagger pierced his very essence that the heart's betrayal casts truths deeper than any sword. Poirot intoned firmly, the culmination of despair mirrored in the faces around him. As dawn broke hesitantly over the horizon, Poirot took his leave from Averton Hall, casting one last look at what remained, a sanctuary draped in sorrow, shadows, and poignant memories forever etched in time. With each step fading behind him, he uttered softly, "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, and often in seeking sanctuary, we unearth the most tragic of fates." The echoes lingered long after he had departed, cloaking the room in the timeless weight of betrayal. Chapter 6. Coded Messages. The clock struck midnight, each chime resonating like a funeral bell in the oppressive silence of the dimly lit study. A single flickering candle cast wavering shadows upon the walls, its light barely holding back the engulfing darkness. Suddenly, a low whisper broke the stillness, echoing a serene yet chilling calm that lingered just beyond reason, spiraling deeper into madness. The faintest rustle of parchment, a fleeting sound, sent a shiver down Hercule Poirot's spine, commanding his full attention as he leaned forward, eager for revelation. In the wake of Colonel Dashwood's murder, the somber air had thickened within Averton Hall, tension palpable among its inhabitants. Poirot sat before the grand fireplace, the flames dance mirroring the turmoil within him as he recounted the unresolved mysteries still threading through the hearts of Lady Eleanor, Prudence Wren, and Vincent Hargrove. Each of them had emerged from that tragic night clutching the remnants of a fractured web of secrets that perhaps bore clues to dark truths yet uncovered. "Mon ami," Poirot mused quietly, noting the unease rippling through the gathering. "What strange design has fate woven upon us? For when words fail, it is often the silence that proves the most telling." He recalled the letter bearing the initials L.A. discovered among the colonel's possessions. While it initially held the promise of misdirection leading to mistaken identities, now it seemed to hint at deeper entanglements, coded messages whispered through ink and paper. His thoughts were interrupted as Lady Eleanor entered, her expression a tempest of sorrow and defiance. "Monsieur Poirot, I am certain the truth is drowned beneath layers of suspicion," she implored, her voice taut like a drawn bowstring. "I can no longer carry the weight of our secrets alone." The flickering candlelight illuminated the tear-streaked remnants of her makeup from the prior night's turmoil. Yet Poirot sensed a shimmering ember of resolve igniting within her. "Our past is riven with betrayal, but unearthing these emotions may lead us to clarity," he offered quietly, his keen gaze intent upon her. "What of the letter? It must hold some legacy of your history with—" Dashwood Eleanor hesitated, her breath shallow as trepidation shrouded her essence. "That letter," she finally confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "It bears my name, a vestige of my drawings. Dashwood claimed it as evidence against me, threatened to expose the life I kept hidden. But it was always just art, a reflection of my heart." Poirot's brow furrowed, each word resonating like a chime within the vast studies of his mind. "Ah, but art, my dear lady, possesses a voice unspeakable, a language of its own," he reflected, sensing that Eleanor's artistic endeavors entwined with pixels of truth. "It may carry messages encoded through vision rather than mere words." Just then Prudence Wren entered, her countenance pale, skin contrasting starkly with the darkened room, as if echoing the shadows of despair encroaching from outside. "Monsieur Poirot," she said urgently, wringing her hands, "I must speak with you. There's something I found in the colonel's private study." Her eyes darted nervously as she stepped closer, urgency electrifying the air. Amongst his writings was a journal, filled with elaborate sketches in code, A cipher that would reveal his threats. Poirot's interest piqued, his mind casting maps connecting hidden words to fraught emotions. The Colonel, a man of intellect, yet every mind conceals corners dark and convoluted. What did these sketches portray, Mademoiselle Wren? With trembling hands, Prudence produced a tightly wrapped parchment. Each drawing is a symbol of his intent, a reflection of his discontent, she replied, her voice trembling. As she laid the parchment before Poirot, he leaned closer, absorbing the intricate designs flowing from one margin to the other. They were tales etched in ink, revealing hidden emotions that danced just outside the realm of conscious thought. Yet apart from the coded messages, a shadow shifted. The door creaked open, revealing Vincent Hargrove, his face an inscrutable mask. "What secrets do you discuss so solemnly?" he inquired, his tone alarmingly steady. Yet Poirot sensed a tremor lurking beneath the facade. "I was merely expressing my concerns regarding the Colonel's journal," advanced Poirot, his gaze piercing yet cautious. "One must wonder, Monsieur Hargrove, if jealousy weaves as intricately as deceit within your acquaintance with Dashwood?" Hargrove's facade cracked for a fleeting moment, revealing the anguish that stormed behind his eyes. A deeply buried truth, buried within pride. Their tension reached a crescendo, and Poirot seized the opportunity. "Then allow us to decode this enigma together. Each line, every stroke imbued within the paper, speaks to the heart. Let us weave our perspectives and uncover the truth hidden beneath." They gathered around the low table, Poirot methodically guiding their hushed breaths as he scrutinized the coded messages that unfolded like petals before him. Each shift in ink hinted at desperation, betrayal, and buried intentions meticulously entwined within the art crafted by Lady Eleanor's soulful hand. Poirot's mind whirred, the patterns revealing twisted designs of rivalry and yearning. "Prudence, are these not the illustrations you spoke of? The very shadows which once darkened your past with Dashwood? And Eleanor, your expressive art transcends mere portraits. It conceals a tempest beneath each stroke." With every passage dissected, the puzzle pieces began to align, revealing not merely a contest of hearts, but a calculated chain of deceit. Yet beneath each revelation simmered a haunting truth. Betrayal ran deeper than mere misunderstandings. The coded sketches conveyed truths that echoed long past their creation. As the storm raged outside, a sudden shift in emotion swept through the room. Poirot's astute observation cast doubt upon their mirrored expressions. Even through their guilt, they remained deeply interlinked, their emotions brewing a storm unto themselves. The final revelation loomed just beyond reach, a heartbeat away from clarity. "Ah, but how clever the deception becomes!" Poirot exclaimed suddenly, recognizing the deeper threat cloaked within the sketches. "You all sought recognition, yet fell prey to the very loss of identity with which you grappled." The climax unveiled itself abruptly as he gazed deeply into Hargrove's eyes. Abandon flickered there, a knowing light illuminating his darkest shadows. "You wished vengeance but forgot that the heart, rattled by envy, births the most tragic tales." As shockwaves cascaded through the room, Vincent Hargrove recoiled, shadowed by the remnants of a betrayal that quaked deep within him. "No, you must understand. I never meant for it to reach this," he cried, his defenses shattered. The weight of truth hung around them, an emotional burden now laid bare in sharp contrast. Poirot focused intently on Hargrove as each dormant emotion flooded forth. "It was but a means to cloak your own deception, while seeking pity beneath artful portrayals. Betrayal festers within one's heart like flies to sweet ambrosia, closely concealed, lurking." In the aftermath, as the candlelight flickered dimly, Poirot lingered within the shadows, the final curtain lifting amidst unfinished symphonies and weary souls outwardly marred by their own choices. "Ah, my dear friends," he stated softly, the weight of the revelation pressing upon him. "In pursuit of embracing our truths, we oft spiral into the very labyrinth we seek to escape. Here let us remember, beneath your codes, your messages, remains one undying truth. The heart is not simply a vessel of passion, it is a mirror reflecting upon the echoes of our deepest fears." With these words piercing the stillness, Poirot left the candlelit study, aware of the echoes trailing behind, a dark tale forever imprinted within the chambers of the soul. Chapter 7. The Illusion of Alibis. The storm raged outside Averton Hall, hurling sheets of rain against the ivy-clad windows, as if nature itself condemned the sins harbored within the ancient walls. A single flickering candle cast small shadows that danced upon the dampened parchment strewn across the grand study. It was here, surrounded by relics of history and heartbreak, that Hercule Poirot stood, poised and contemplative, drawing deeply from the currents of his own brilliant mind. It was this very room that had witnessed Colonel Dashwood's final breaths, a space now shrouded in layers of grief and hush, purloined secrets, steadily seeping through the cracks. As he prepared to resume his investigation into the intricacies of human frailty, Poirot noted the tension in the air, thickening like a noose drawn ever tighter. The echoes of anguish from the previous night hung heavily, urging him forward into the unknown, promising revelations that could rattle the very foundations of identity among those gathered. With the session of emotional revelations behind him, Poirot realized he had merely skimmed the surface of the true depths beneath, a curtain of deception still veiling the truth. In the heart of the looming darkness, three individuals remained utterly intertwined with the ghost of Dashwood, their lives marred by tangled threads of deceit, lurking desperation, and unspoken truths. Vincent Hargrove, the once beloved friend turned potential rival, bore a countenance of raw anguish. Lady Eleanor, a vessel of artistic passion and untold narratives, concealing a heart weighed down by regret. And Prudence, Wren, a delicate presence wrapped in a cloak of vulnerability, yet hiding a tenacity that made her formidable. Their alibis, one might surmise, were stitched together with care, each one appearing innocent while concealing harbored malice beneath fragile exteriors. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused quietly as they gathered once more in the flickering candlelight. He steeled himself. What whispered truths lurk behind those masks you wear? As each suspect spoke, their voices layered like echoes in a canyon. Poirot sifted through their alibis with the precision of a jeweler examining an uncut diamond. Hargrove was first, his voice ringing hollow, beseeching the others to align with him against their common adversary, the Colonel. "We were together during the storm, I assure you. Look at the time. It was impossible for me to be involved," he asserted. Yet his fervor felt disjointed, as if he were desperately attempting to convince not only his peers, but himself. "Nay, physical presence does not equate to moral absolution," Poirot interjected smoothly. His gaze, piercing as an arrow, bore into Hargrove's as nuance crept into the shadows of disdain for the man who had been poised near victory over him. "What doubts linger in your soul, Monsieur Hargrove, as you frolic between outrage and denial?" Next, Lady Eleanor, she of the hidden artistry, spoke cautiously, her words dripping with artistry and sorrow. "I was painting, trying to conceal all that troubled me. I could not have done harm," she insisted, but her eyes betrayed a glimmer of subterfuge. Was it merely the distress of losing her muse, or something far more insidious? What had she concealed beneath layers of oil and canvas? "Ah, but the strokes upon that canvas, they whisper secrets," Poirot replied, observing her fidgeting hands. There was an urgency in her demeanor that flickered like the dying flame, yet a desire to be understood that teetered on the precipice of betrayal. "Your heart played a symphony, yet what notes were played during the silence?" Finally, Prudence Wren, though seemingly trembling with vulnerability, revealed a mind sharper than the blade that could sever deception from truth. "You must believe me. I heard the commotion, the noise of struggle," she implored, her voice trembling yet intense. "I knew, of course, I had to remain hidden." But her very insistence raised the barometer of suspicion anew. Poirot felt the silken threads of the alibis, intertwining like a tangled web. Each statement led somewhere else, diverting the eye like a street magician's sleight of hand. Perhaps it was folly to trust their voiced truths, for the chaos of the storm was not merely outside. Shadows danced through the minds of his companions, filling the room with tensions not merely born of a tragic event, but rather a culmination of past grievances and dreams unfulfilled. As night deepened and shadows thickened, Poirot's mind raced, shifting rapidly through misdirected clues and half-truths, whispers of alibis untangled into a conundrum of emotions that hinted at deeper grudges pressed beneath fragile facades, allowing him to notice small signs others neglected. A forgotten clue appeared near a pair of exquisite shears, crimson threads barely discernible against the polished wood, a devilish hint of art entwined with deception. Ah, Poirot breathed as realization dawned. You each crafted your alibis with threads stitched from your own fears. A careful design masking deeper resentments. In that moment, he understood that a singular entity had sought to weave a web of illusions around the colonel, aged by past rivalries that ignited the passions that perhaps should have extinguished long ago. Emerging from the shadows once more, Poirot reconvened the attendees, shifting their attention toward the flickering candlelight. I must ask, does each of you know of the prized journals concerned? Keepsakes of repute, yet I believe harboring the very essence of secrets we now face? Their reactions were instantaneous. Hargrove's eyes fleetingly darkened, while Lady Eleanor's composure nearly faltered. What secrets do you speak of? Prudence's voice emerged, almost quaking, containing equal parts trepidation and lingering dread. Ah, but I ask in dread, for the past intertwined with the present conceals a venomous truth. You, all gathered here, seem to be mere puppets rehearsing lines from a well-traveled script. The revelation struck, like thunder, and Poirot seized the moment. Yet I sense an additional act, wherein the art of your alibis disguises true motivations. As Poirot laid the twisted facts before them, he placed his own wise deductions into motion, calculating the paths forward. The storm continued its ravages outside as tensions spiraled deeper, with each connected thread woven into the fabric of deception. The truth would surely emerge, obscured yet poignant, revealing not only the veil of betrayal, but the bittersweet embrace of mortality born from art's tragic embrace. Then, like a candle flickering against the veil of darkness, Poirot finally elucidated the complexity of the situation. The first twist revealed a connection between Lady Eleanor's artistic frustrations and Hargrove's simmering envy. Yet the finale of the evening came twisted like a bow upon the tempest, a shard of revelation that both shattered illusions and redefined allegiances. Raised voices and accusations blurred into chaos, miscommunication, dancing in the limelight until, at last, the storm resonated within them, paralleling the burgeoning triumph and heartache of betrayal at play. Ah, what tragedy befalls us when shame outweighs the bonds we craft with trust, my dear friends, Poirot intoned solemnly as he surveyed their faces, each reflecting shards of anguish and despair. Through the veil of alibis and false bravado, one must bear witness to the heart's deception as it shatters, seeking vindication at any cost. The air crackled with the weight of his words as they hung heavy, visceral, wrapping an ominous cloak around their shared fates. And so, as the night ebbed towards its quiescence, Poirot departed Averton Hall, leaving behind the fractured silhouettes of a bond now frayed and torn, interminable echoes of truth ringing in each soul's heart, a reminder of what lays beneath the surfaces we dare not confront. Chapter 8. Betrayal in the Shadows. The rain lashed against the windows of Averton Hall as if nature itself mourned the blood that had stained its hallowed floors. In the flickering candlelight, shadows crept across the wood-paneled walls, like specters awakening from a long slumber. Poirot's precise mind, ever attuned to the cadence of human emotion, sensed a disturbance, an ominous undercurrent wrought from secrets long buried and resentments simmering beneath the surface. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he murmured, stepping into the study where the air felt thick with unspoken words. Moments earlier, the evening had turned chaotic. Vincent Hargrove lay sprawled on the study floor, his once dignified form now marred by betrayal and rage. The candlelight illuminated the ghastly scene, a jagged letter opener protruding from his side, glistening ominously. Lady Eleanor, her artistic hand now stained, stood frozen, lips trembling in horror. Prudence Wren hovered near the door, her fragile demeanor cracking under the weight of something unsaid, while a velvet curtain cradled the shadows of her own doubts. Each figure bore the pallor of dread, knowing that in the dim corners of the room, truths lay waiting to be uncovered. Poirot's sharp gaze darted between the trio. Lady Eleanor's artistic genius was marred by desperation. She had sought validation, and her emotions swung like a pendulum between admiration and jealousy of Hargrove's success. "You saw it all unfold, didn't you? So fixated on your palette that you neglected the brush." "Strokes of your own despair?" he inquired, voice steady yet curious, teasing out the edges of her hidden turmoil. Her reaction was immediate, a visible flinch at his words, as if a soft thorn had pricked deeply. "Stay back! I didn't touch him. This has gone too far," she exclaimed, her breath quickening, cheeks flushed with rebellion. Yet within her eyes Poirot noted the gleam of truth, as elusive as a flickering candle. Prudence Wren's fragility belied a core of strength that Poirot suspected might harbor darker undercurrents. I was merely an observer. I didn't harm him," she stammered, gripping the doorframe like a lifeline. "In his final moments, there was shouting, chaos. I thought—" Her voice quavered, but Poirot picked up on the shift. Her eyes momentarily darkened, with a regret she couldn't articulate. Could she have been more than a mere bystander, ensnared within the webs of their conflicts? "And you, Monsieur Hargrove?" Poirot turned his attention to the now lifeless body, his mind processing the echoes of deceit that might have echoed from his triumphant past. "Did you dare to confront your shadows? Or were they the ones who ambushed you first?" Such questions clung to the air, like tension drawn taut, a seam ready to fracture. As the storm raged outside, Poirot gathered the remaining suspects. In each statement he dissected, he perceived layers often overlooked. Hargrove's ambition steeped in ruthless rivalry, Eleanor's artistic soul entwined with envy, and Prudence, encased in a cocoon of vulnerability, yet capable of clever deceptions. Each spun seemingly innocent threads, yet he could sense the web tightening, forming a vengeful tapestry of secrets, whispers echoing with every shift in the candlelight. With each interview, Poirot cultivated deliberate atmosphere, a careful orchestration of tension that heightened their emotions. Lady Eleanor, while cloaked in beauty and grace, cast furtive glances at the body, igniting suspicion. "We must confront these petty emotions," Poirot pressed, "for beneath the stratagem of art lies an untold truth." Yet deep inside, his thoughts grappled with a greater enigma. Each character danced along the edge of moral ambiguity, entangled in the fabric of their deceitful threads. In a moment of profound realization, ignited by a wayward whisper from Prudence, he recalled an earlier encounter. A mislaid brooch whispered of betrayal amongst the ashes of connection. "My dear Prudence," he said softly, observing the ornachimum flick of her anxious gaze. "Is it possible you once wore something more intimate than mere fear of exposure?" The murmur was electric, her heart racing beneath the facade of fragility. As the storm's fury culminated outside, Poirot brought them together once more, face to face with revelations that pulled taut in the twilight. He revealed the brooch, an exquisite pin lost in the shuffle of emotions. "Ah, but I wonder, who among you feels the weight of a greater burden beneath that artifice?" Ty and I carefully scrutinized each face before him, their reactions telling tales as vibrant as the finest canvases. The revelations circled the room, the subtle twitches of Eleanor's restless hands, the tightness in Prudence's mouth, and the last brush strokes of Hargrove's ambitious dreams. Yet hidden like rustling leaves in the storm, a red herring emerged. Was it not Lady Eleanor's jealousy that drove the blade, but Hargrove's own miscalculations? "You tricked us all, did you not? Presenting a facade, while concealing truths that could uproot your very existence?" Hargrove's shadows conversed through echoes, hinting for light, yet revealing blinding darkness. Finally, as the pieces danced frantically around the truth, Poirot struck at the heart of the matter. "A tale of two betrayals emerges, my friends. Eleanor's jealousy, yes, but your heart, Monsieur Hargrove, was cleaved by your own designs. The knife that turned the tide was one of emotional magnitude. You betrayed yourself first." The silence that ensued swept through the room, understanding dawning like renewed day against the shadows. Poirot expressed with tranquil finality, "In our pursuit of supremacy, we often shatter the very essence of trust, only to find ourselves adrift in the tumult we sought to escape." With those resonant words, the storm outside began to subside, leaving only the haunted remnants of emotions charged with life in the air. The final revelation held them fast. Betrayal is not a singular act. It festers in the heart and binds relationships in ways they never realize. As Poirot turned to leave, he knew the echoes of Averton's Hall would resound far beyond this night, carrying whispers of truth as a reminder of the shadows that dwell within. Chapter 9. The Game of Deceit. As the wind howled outside, rattling the very foundations of Averton Hall, a chilling scream shattered the night air, a cry steeped in both horror and betrayal. Poirot's practiced ears caught the sound, and an uneasy thrill coursed through him. There in the dim light of the drawing room, shadows danced upon the walls, concealing secrets as twisting as the lightning that illuminated the stormy skies. He was all too familiar with the veil of human emotions, for as he often mused, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami." The shattered remains of yet another evening gathered like distraught spirits in the room. Lady Eleanor stood paralyzed, her elegant features contorted by a mixture of fear and disbelief, her paintbrush abandoned on the floor, its bristles still glistening with colors, yet unfinished. Across the room loomed Nathaniel Wicklow, a painter whose once-promised career lay in the shadow of Hargrove's success. He clenched an empty wineglass, fingers white as the marble that adorned the hall. And there, on the settee, Prudence Wren could only murmur, her once innocent demeanor wrapped in dread. "It can't be." "Not Lady Eleanor," she whispered, her voice quivering in the tense atmosphere. "Tonight we have witnessed more than art turned fatal, mes amis," Poirot began, his gaze flitting between the three figures, each of them cloaked in their own web of deceit and desperation. "Tonight we have been plunged into an abyss of betrayal." The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows as he moved among them, keenly aware of the suspicions that clung to the air like the scent of damp wood. A singular, powerful emotion moved through each of them, like the sinister undercurrents of a tempest, the lure of creative mastery entwined with regret, ambition tainted by resentment. Lady Eleanor's need for validation could make her push even her closest friends aside, while Nathaniel's jealousy simmered with the intensity of his failed aspirations. Prudence was less obvious but equally caught in the clutches of despair. Each of them harbored a desperate desire to escape their boundaries, to break through into a realm beyond the reach of Hargrove's shadow. The motive, Poirot mused, softly, is an intricate tapestry woven from the very threads of personal betrayal. But which thread holds the most weight? He took a step back, analyzing their averted gazes, the way they flinched at each disclosure, knowing that the storm outside echoed the tempest of emotions erupting within them. "Lady Eleanor, you painted masterpieces from your own emotions. Yet did you not fear that the laughter echoing from Hargrove's triumphs hid the sharp blade of envy? Indeed, the delicate strokes of her paintbrush bore the weight of her turbulence. She recoiled, her cheeks flushed in indignation. I would never harm him. Don't you see? He was an inspiration." As Poirot observed her trembling hands, he subtly turned his gaze toward Nathaniel. "And you, Monsieur Wicklow? Such admiration you claim to hold for both artists, yet surely hidden beneath that polished veneer, you resented the success that eluded you?" Nathaniel's brow furrowed, a shadow flickering across his face as he shot back. "I may envy their craft, but not in blood. It reeks of a deeper betrayal." The statement echoed through the room, revealing underlying tensions like shattered glass reflecting the truth. Prudence, still trembling, whispered through wavering lips, "I was merely an observer. How could I be involved?" But Poirot sensed the yearning hidden within her, a potential for deception wrapped beneath her fragility. My dear lady, to observe is sometimes the most power-laden position of all. What truths might your observations have concealed?" With each interrogation, Poirot sensed the walls closing in on them, their breaths quickening beneath his penetrating scrutiny. The shadows cast by the flickering candles danced mischievously in the corners, and Poirot quickly noted the way Lady Eleanor's fingers nervously traced the edge of the table. "Do you not find it curious," he reflected aloud, "that the artist who sought validation and the admirer quietly brooding over lost inspiration would share a similar motive? You both wield brushes with which to craft your narratives, a narrative that perhaps became entwined with this tragedy." Poirot probed deeper. "And what of the secret letters, hidden beneath varnish and canvas?" This provoked expressions of alarm, yet none offered answers. He was more concerned with their reactions than their admission of guilt. Each response was a thread in this delicate web. An unexpected clatter drew their attention. A forgotten palette tipped off, the table scattering its colors across the floor like one's reputation, mixing in chaos. Amidst the tumult, one color stood out, the vibrant crimson, eerily reminiscent of blood. Ah, but the artist's palette, like the heart, can be deceptive. It shows only surface. It tells no truth of what lies beneath. The storm's fury grew, and with it, the urgency of the investigation. Poirot pursued subtle details, the position of a chair, an energetic flicker of light shadowing a face, a fleeting glance between the suspects. Then suddenly, a realization struck him. There had been a misguided emphasis on Lady Eleanor and Nathaniel, and much like a well-crafted illusion, the true culprit lay, almost comfortably concealed in shadows. With renewed vigor, Poirot rallied them together, illuminating the darkest corners of their intertwined lives. Monsieur Wicklow, witness to despair yet envious of success, was it betrayal that unveiled the true motivations? Suddenly he pivoted sharply, locking eyes with Prudence. Or perhaps, mon ami Prudence, it is you who sought revenge more than admiration, betrayed more by your allowances than by your surroundings. Silence hung in the room like the air after a storm when the truth is finally grasped. The final twist coiled through the gathered suspects, an echo of compassion entangled with the instinctive desire for vindication. Prudence's fragility imploded, and tears of bitter regret welled in her eyes. "It wasn't meant to be," she confessed, her voice quaking. "I only wished to help. It went too far." Poirot's gaze softened in understanding. "Ah, but it is in the depths of our deceptions that true shadows become born. Hargrove, my friends, did not fall prey by another's hand. They were burdened under the weight of their own fears, the final act orchestrated by the heart's own betrayal." As Poirot turned to leave, he left them clinging to the aftermath of a revelation that would haunt their lives. In every game of deceit, someone must pay the iwi price. Remember, each heart holds a fracture for every unshared truth. The echoes of his parting words swept through the hall, yet in their wake lay lingering shadows of remorse, hearts heavy, illusions shattered, and truths finally set adrift upon the winds of fate. Chapter 10. Revelation in the Fog. The night was as thick as a shroud, obscuring even the proudest of trees beneath the weight of a spectral fog that clung to the earth with an unnerving tenacity. A muffled scream, or was it merely the wind howling its discontent, echoed through the mist, upping the dread in the air as darkness enveloped Halcyon Manor, a once grand estate now crumbling under whispers of scandal and betrayal. Within its walls, Hercule Poirot stood, unfazed by the swirling shadows that danced around him, his senses sharpened like a blade awaiting the touch of a master. "Ah, but what a sinister evening it is, mes amis," he murmured to himself, glancing at the flickering candles that offered only a fragile light against the faceless gloom, casting elongated shadows upon the walls like specters of the past. Within these cold confines, malaise collected, festered, and darkened the hearts of those gathered here. The dreadful chaos had begun with a poignant brushstroke against a canvas of deceit, an invaluable painting now stained with the blood of its creator, the elusive artist Layla Hartley, whose life had ebbed away as quickly as the colors washed from her brush. As the abundant fog swirled outside, three figures remained, the echoes of ambition and jealousy manifested in flesh. Lady Minora, serene but weary, stood by the fireplace, her eyes distant and clouded with secrets. She was Lila's closest confidant, having risen from obscurity alongside the artist, both fueled by dreams of beauty and recognition, yet plagued by unspoken rivalry. Then there was Edward Blackwood, a gallery owner with fingers in many proverbial pies. His pupils glinted with a passion that teetered on desperation, for he had pinned both his career and fortune upon Lila's artwork. Lastly, Isadora, a lesser-known painter with a talent marred by self-doubt, lingered quietly off to the side as though waiting for her moment to shine, or for someone else to fade away. Poirot turned to face them, the fabric of the atmosphere thickening. "The storm tonight seems but a mere reflection of the tempest within this very room," he stated, his voice velvet against the tension. "Does not the fog cradle secrets as well as the heart does pain?" A palpable silence fell, as if heretofore they had all been frozen in an act of solemn play-acting. Edged glances exchanged among them, each hiding masks of innocence that only further obscured their true intentions. Lady Minora stepped closer to the flickering light, her hand trembling slightly as she clutched a half-finished letter to Lila. "She was brilliant, not just a friend, but a genius," she replied, her voice harboring an undertone of barely restrained rage. "But even genius begets envy, does it not?" The words hung like barbed wire in the air, igniting the embers of suspicion. "Yes, envy can indeed provide the most furious of flames," Edward interjected, his mouth stretching into a tight smile that did not reach his eyes. "Particularly when one desires more than mere admiration, but the very life of an illustrious career." Poirot observed the tension unfold with exquisite attention, recognizing the slight shifts in their body language. Isadora's withered, hands pressed together in torment, Lady Minora's defiance faltering under the weight of truth, and Edward's insatiable ambition cloaking his demeanor in sinister allure. As questions peppered the air like raindrops against the dusty window panes, Poirot began to weave and probe delicately. Had Lady Minora's bond with Lila's artistry ensnared you within a web of rivalry? Was the brush of betrayal painted not with blood, but envy? He asked, each inquiry seeming to deepen the fog of uncertainty. Swirling about them, she recoiled, indignation firing back at the suggestion, but Poirot noted the telltale flash of something else, concealed beneath layers of indignation. A hushed whisper escaped Isadora's lips. "I should have been the one to be recognized. Not her. I'm the more talented." The admission was a sudden gale through the already tempestuous night. In that moment, it was as if the fog drew closer, swallowing her words and casting the guilt like a mantle across the room. Poirot paused, arching an eyebrow. The blaze of revelation flickered momentarily in the dimness. "Ah, but would one so talented resort to violence, mon ami? Surely the palette of jealousy would drive you but to create more than to erase." Edward, growing increasingly agitated, found himself struggling for breath, clamoring for the spotlight shimmering just out of reach. "It's perfidious to question one's character, Poirot. Lila was the jewel of the gallery. Perhaps it was you who pushed her too hard. Perhaps it was you by whom she felt threatened." His accusation ricocheted off the walls, igniting ire that surged through the room like a wildfire. But Poirot remained unflinching, ready to unfurl the layers of deceit like petals unfurling at dawn. As he scrutinized their inner workings, Poirot sensed the looming anxiety, sensing that within this tapestry of ambition lay threads of circumstances stitched together by desperation. Each whisper became another thread, weaving together the fabric of their truths and constructs. "Ah, mon cher Edward, did the shadows of financial despair cloud your judgment?" he posited, every word a careful brushstroke as he worked through the chaos. The gallery's debts hung over him like a particularly dangerous storm cloud, and the tightening around his mouth betrayed unease. Just as the atmosphere chilled deeper, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing Lady Minora clutching Lila's bloody scarf hidden within the folds of her dress. Poirot's eyes widened in momentary horror as he acted instinctively. Mon Dieu, if deliberation lingered in the heart, a dance with betrayal soon emerged. The revelation struck like thunder. In that moment, it was revealed that she had merely been a scapegoat of circumstances gone awry. Lila had lusted after Edward's affections that lay dormant in Lady Minora's embrace. But as quick as the fog enveloped, Poirot found it a shifting reality as truths morphed under the weight of imagination. It was not you who struck the final blow. Rather, it was a phantom that haunted this manor, that of crushed ambitions and obscured identities. Poirot turned to Isidora, his voice almost a whisper, yet filled with the sharpness of truth. But dear Isidora, your desire to stand within the light of recognition rendered you complacent, did it not? Ought there not be boundaries between admiration and destruction? Within the silence that followed, a reminder of the unfathomable human heart, reverberated, betrayal comes in many forms. It is the echo of our suppressed fears that thrusts us into darkness. The final twist lay not in the act of violence that brought Lila to her demise, but rather in a betrayal of ideals, dreams crystallized in the fog. As Poirot stepped back to let their heartbreak unfurl, the remnants of chaos draped gently like tendrils of mist. All were forever altered by the dwelling shadows of their consciences, reaching out and enveloping each other in a morose embrace. He turned towards the gate, for the chilling chaos outside had diminished into an unfathomable silence. In our pursuit for recognition, we sometimes commit far deeper atrocities, and so the human heart, my dear ones, it hides many things, mon ami. With that poignant finality, he left them behind, retreating into the enveloping fog that now held within it the weight of their collective guilt, a lingering specter that would forever haunt Halcyon Manor. Chapter 11. The Final Gambit. Thus so clock struck midnight, its solemn chime resonating through the hallowed halls of Ashcroft Manor, where shadows writhed like malicious spirits conjured by the tempest outside. Lightning sliced through the murky sky, momentarily illuminating the lurking figures within the estate, three souls entangled in a web of envy and ambition, thrumming with a palpable tension that matched the violent storm's fury. A suffocating stillness hung in the air, broken only by a muffled gasp that echoed through the dimly lit library, signaling the arrival of dread. Hercule Poirot stood apart from the fray, his keen gaze absorbing the unfolding drama, every minute detail rendered vivid in his investigative mind. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he muttered to himself, sensing treachery weaving through the fabric of their interactions. Before him lay an array of character studies, the elegantly composed Lady Hermione Ashcroft, who commanded the room with an icy glare despite the anguish that lined her features, her debonair husband, Sir Victor Ashcroft, whose charm cast a beguiling spell, rendering him both captivating and untrustworthy, and the aspiring author, Mr. Jonathan Crispin, whose desperation for recognition was both obvious and unsettling. Each held within them motives as dark and intricate as the night that surrounded them. As Poirot began to speak, his words faltered under the weight of an unearthly chill that swept through the room, and the grim discovery, unfurled before them, a lifeless body sprawled amid a cascade of leather-bound tomes, the lifeblood of the deceased staining the aged carpet crimson. Lady Hermione, her visage momentarily ghostly, stepped back, hands trembling, their adorned rings glinting menacingly in the candlelight. The once grand library now felt like a mausoleum that hid secrets older than its dust-laden shelves. Mon Dieu, it is terrible, ma chère, Poirot whispered, stepping toward the body and noting the deep gash upon the victim's throat. It was a murder steeped in raw emotion. The victim was none other than Oliver Sinclair, a renowned literary critic whose voice shaped reputations and careers with swift strokes of his pen, now silenced forever. The undercurrents of envy that rippled through the room became almost tangible, a thick fog of possibility clouding the motives of those surrounding him. The police siren wailing in the distance signaled urgency, but Poirot's mind was already spinning like a finely tuned clock, cataloging the nuances of the scene. Lady Hermione's sharp intake of breath betrayed her facade. Sir Victor's casual fidgeting belied a hidden panic, while Jonathan's wide eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and relief. The threads of ambition conjoin in tragic harmony, Poirot mused, but who among you strikes each note with a knife? Thus began the weaving of questions that pierced the veil of their carefully constructed alibis. Poirot turned to Lady Hermione, her noble lineage, etched with an ambitious thirst for successful legacy. Mademoiselle, your relationship with Mr. Sinclair was not merely a discourse over aesthetics, n'est-ce pas? Did it perhaps tumble into a baptism of disdain? Her reply was brisk yet brittle, a subtle tremor hiding within her beautifully measured tones. He was a critic, not a friend. I dared hope for his approval, but he instead wielded his pen like a sword. Her glare challenged him, yet he noted the quiver of her lips. Poirot's sharp eyes shifted to Sir Victor, his expression a mask of concern. "And what of you, Sir Victor?" Your reputation flourished under the warmth of Lady Hermione's success. Might Mr. Sinclair's ink have threatened your personal renaissance? The accusation twisted around the couple, igniting discord. As Sir Victor laughed too heartily, he revealed the fragility of his facade. Sinclair's critiques were merely fuel for the ambitious, nothing more. Yet in the shadows, Jonathan Crispin lingered, the pulse of desperation clutching at his heart. "You do not understand," he cut in, the tremor in his voice exposing more than mere nerves. "Sinclair's scorn would have left me a pariah. It was not envy, but fear that drove me. If you mean to suggest that I had motive," he tilted his head defiantly, "then you have it utterly wrong." Poirot noted the way his fingers trembled against the cluttered desk, a betraying glaze. As the investigation deepened, revelations shuffled like a deck of cards in Poirot's brilliant mind. Every member had their secrets. The true crime was not merely of flesh and blood, but of ambition and dreams unfulfilled. Tension rose as Poirot prompted further, carefully eliciting truths that dripped like the rain from the eaves, simmering beneath the surface of each word exchanged. "Lady Hermione, tell me, how long did you truly feel your husband could bear the shadow of a critic?" Poirot inquired, allowing emotion to thread through his voice. A flicker crossed her face at the mention of betrayal buried in the heart of tradition. I merely wished for my talents to stand," she replied, her breath catching as jolts of realization surged through. Words were left unspoken, alluding to the hidden animosities that filled the mansion, the waves of tumult threatening to spill into chaos. "This is not a mere tale of vengeance," Poirot continued, lingering on the subtle shifts in demeanor, which echoed like whispers through the night. In the moments that trailed, a revelation surged, a lie incited by ambition. As the pieces began to slot together, one question became undeniable. Who plays the architect as well as the mere player? The storm beat against the windows in anticipation, and Poirot turned sharply to the accused. "Victor, my dear fellow, the facade may fall to dust, but adherence to your narrative will remain not for the world to witness." In that crescendo of tension, a confession erupted. Lady Hermione, tears carving paths upon her flushed cheeks, cried out, "I wanted to save my career from the brambles of failure, but I thought he would leave us be." It was then that the veil of betrayal hung heavy and dark. The final twist came not from any weapon of choice, but through the very bonds that sought to bind them to deceit. "Jonathan," Poirot murmured, drawing closer, "you puppeteered despair from the audience. Therefore, by having your disdain masked in gentle whispers, you made the unthinkable choice to silence him forever in defense of your own desperation for acclaim." The room plunged into silence as the weight of Poirot's deductions settled like dust upon precious shelves. The labyrinthine threads of their desires now intertwined with folly and ambition. With an air of confidence, Poirot pronounced the final judgment, leaving no shadow of doubt. Through the fog of illusions and self-deceptions, the truth shines clearer than the moonlit night. In this gambit, dear friends, you became both players and pawns, only to discover that in the game of life, treachery begets tragedy. His somber gaze swept across the anguished faces afflicted by the heart's betrayal, sealing their fates as he stepped into the shadowed realm of the unknown, where the twofold truths would forever whisper amidst the storm's lingering echoes. Chapter 12. A Game. Well played. The storm's howling winds clawed at the ancient stones of Ashcroft Manor, creating a chorus of sinister whispers that filled the night air. Thunder rumbled like a beast, awakened, and lightning danced menacingly across the sky, intermittently casting eerie shadows that flickered and glinted off the mirrored surfaces of the ornate furnishings. Within this tempestuous cocoon, a body lay sprawled on the opulent carpet of the drawing room, its stillness stark against the tempest of life that continued outside. This was no mere casualty of nature. It was a crime born of dark ambition, a desperate act encapsulated in the very heart of chaos. Hercule Poirot entered the scene with the sort of measured grace that belied the tumult around him. His eyes, sharp and piercing, surveyed the room as if peeling back the layers of reality to reveal deeper truths. Not far from the body, a crystal vase lay shattered, its contents spilling like memories unwelcome. "Mon Dieu," Poirot uttered, his voice a blend of astonishment and sorrow. "Such an unnerving tableau we have here, where envy has driven a stake through the very essence of life." The lifeless figure before him was none other than Lady Christabel, a philanthropist known for her sharp wit and sharper criticisms against her peers. The late hour and the forbidding weather seemed to conspire, creating an atmosphere thick with impending revelation. The three figures in the room seemed to float in the shadows, their expressions etched with a blend of fear and calculation. Firstly, there was Andrew Blackwood, Lady Christabel's estranged business partner. Clad in dark attire, his hand trembled as he touched the corner of an exquisite painting on the wall, a testament to their shared ambitions now turned sour. His sharp gaze met Poirot's with an unspoken challenge hidden behind a veneer of concern. "Do you believe it was me, Poirot? I would never," he began, but the words fell flat, revealing the strain beneath his carefully crafted facade. Opposite him hovered Lady Emmeline, Christabel's closest ally and rival in philanthropy. Her expression was one of barely contained distress, yet the glint in her eyes suggested something far more sinister. "Andrew was always reckless with his investments. He probably bled her dry," she retorted, her tone laced with barely masked contempt. Lady Emmeline's motives ran deeper than mere financial woes, her ambitions intertwined with Christabel's final philanthropic endeavor, a project that had promised to lift her own status in society. "If only she had listened to me," her voice trailed off, leaving unspoken accusations weighing heavily in the air. Finally, there was Simon, an aspiring writer who had been a protégé of Lady Christabel. Beneath his artfully disheveled hair lay a mix of admiration and resentment. "She turned me away when I needed her most. You don't understand the depths of her betrayal," he blurted out, the storm outside echoing within him. His trembling hands betrayed his attempt to appear composed. Simon had clung to a fragile dream, nurtured by the very woman he now stood over. But the dream had soured, much like the atmosphere thick with secrets. Poirot's mind ticked like a finely tuned clock, navigating the currents of emotion that swirled among the suspects. Each held a thread of motive, tangled delicately around their ambitions. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, pondering the darkness that lay beneath their polished exteriors. With fluid precision, he began to navigate the intricate web of lies. "What about the broken vase?" Poirot inquired, observing Andrew's guilty flinch. "A symbol of your ambitions, perhaps? Did it betray your stress upon discovering that Lady Christabel planned to cut you off?" Andrew clenched his fists, his voice growing desperate. "I was there when the vase shattered, but I didn't kill her. She wanted to end our partnership. She feared I would ruin her reputation," Lady Emmeline interjected, her voice dripping with scorn. "You were both too busy playing games with your finances. Where were you when she needed a friend of character?" Poirot's discerning gaze shifted, noting how Simon's fingers danced along the edges of his notepad, a subtle hint that he was recording something, a detail too trivial among the weighty emotions unfolded. "Why did you leave the room, Simon?" Poirot pressed, his eyes narrowing. "Was it merely to distract from the brewing tempest of your own grievances?" Amidst his burgeoning emotions, Simon's face darkened. "She belittled my work. I was passionate, I was a talent, and I was nothing to her." His outburst evoked silence, creating a moment heavy with unexpressed emotions and tangled loyalty. And then came the twist that enveloped the room like the shadows creeping through the corners. Poirot paused, replaying their conversed lies like a tragedy on a stage. "Lady Emmeline," he addressed her with precision, "the whispers of desperation are easily confused with echoes of ambition. Your rival's success reflective of failures may twist the mind, but your decorated facade hides a deep-seated envy." Before she could mount a defense, a fateful sound resounded, the echo of the clock marking time that had twisted in their favor since the night began. Poirot smiled, a grim understanding forming within him, yet it was another darkness that played this treacherous game. With tensions on a razor's edge, Poirot meticulously pieced together the narrative, focusing back on the broken vase. "You see, dear friend," he proclaimed, capturing their rapt attention, "the claim that this vase shattered upon chaos is not merely a tale of violent emotions, but rather a statement of shattered ambitions." They held their breath, waiting for the revelation. "You, Simon, you claim to have witnessed Christabel at her most vulnerable, yet you chose to pen those very betrayals into a script meant to silence her forever," Poirot concluded, pointing at the scattered writing strewn across Simon's desk. "It was you who embodied the final betrayal, hiding behind the guise of despair. You orchestrated this deception, enticing her with promises of mentorship, yet delivering the fatal act born from wounded pride." The faces around him shifted through shades of disbelief to horror as the final dagger of truth twisted in Simon's heart. "No," he whispered, shaking as if the air had gone cold. "I didn't mean for it to lead there." She wouldn't listen. She kept saying I would never be more than a mere footnote. Poirot, with his calm yet commanding presence, locked eyes with Simon, the gravity of the moment pulling heavily upon him. "In the game we play, where ambition is wielded as a weapon, one must often face the final consequence, the truth encased in betrayal." The storm raged on, its howls now blending into the murmurs of guilt. As Poirot stepped out into the tumultuous night, a veil of darkness enveloping Ashcroft Manor, he turned back towards the sprawled figures, the very essence of their hearts exposed. "Indeed, my dear friends, it is in the shadows of our dreams and our ambitions that betrayal finds its solace, a harvest darker than any storm." And with those parting words, he melted into the obscurity beyond, leaving behind echoes of guilt and reflection that would haunt Ashcroft Manor forever.